fu tala ne talanta tezigulwa zava wa mutonzi. That is a poem written by Fire Bongole Lutaya in one of his big songs. So let's get into Simon Kagwanjala. Simon, you must be very well conversant with that song. Do you remember the title of the song?
Goodness me. You've really ambushed me.
Yeah. But you remember the next line?
Can I pass it to one of my guests tonight?
Yeah, one of your guests would know. But the next line is Gwebuza Ganja Buza Mukuru. You know the song. What is coming on the front line?
Well, we're going to be having big conversations. Yeah. And you might be really thrilled to know who is in the studio. Certainly, do we call her the ombudswoman? Because normally it is ombudsman. Tonight it's the ombudswoman, the lady at the helm of fighting corruption.
Okay.
Is he cracking the whip? It's one of the questions that we'll be asking tonight.
I am almost certain that she knows the title of the song.
But as you get out, did you see the message from police yesterday wishing us a happy World Press Freedom Day?
Okay.
What's your comment?
My comment? I'll ask my bodyguard.
NBS Frontline. Another anti-corruption unit looms inside State House. The Fountain of Honor says this new unit will be the one to stop greedy government officials from exploiting investors.
I'm going to set up another small unit where the investors can ring directly.
On the surface, government has put a lot of effort into fighting the many forms of corruption. Yet, like a many-headed hydra, a new scandal pops up each time one has been cut off.
So unless he's saying that he wants to create an anti-corruption unit that then oversees the other anti-corruption unit.
We have reached a level where some investors start budgeting for corruption.
Worse still, the perception is that in the worst corruption scandals, only the small fish are brought to book. So what difference will another unit make to a fight that has failed the IGG, DPP, police and other anti-graft units?
What the president is saying is that he is attaching a lot of importance to investors in this country.
Is Uganda winning the war against corruption, or is it fighting a losing battle to a vice that is now endemic? This is The Frontline. NBS Frontline.
Welcome to The Frontline and a very good evening to our viewers wherever you are. My name is Simon Kagwanjala. And well, tonight we'll be exploring the progress, the strides, the setbacks, and the challenges in the fight against corruption in the midst of yet a new arousing discussion surrounding the creation, the proposed creation of yet another unit within State House. And the president says this unit will specifically be handling the complaints, the bureaucracies that investors go through. Some investors, according to the president, have reported having parted with kickbacks to enable them settle in or set up projects in the country. Amidst all this, the big question is, will this be a setback or a boost to the fight against corruption? Tonight, I'm joined by Honorable Semuju Ibrahim Nganda, Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality. He will be our guest tonight. And the big guest in the studio is the lady at the helm of the fight against corruption, Honorable Beti Kamya, Beti Olive Namisango Kamya, the Inspector General of Government, together with our panelist, regular frontliner, Mr. Ofono Pondo, the government spokesperson, Executive Director, Uganda Media Center. And during the course of the show, we expect to be joined by Honorable Winnie Kiza former leader of opposition in parliament and former woman member of parliament for Kasese district. But it's only befitting as we start the show first to pay tribute to Honorable Charles retired Colonel Charles Engola, who tragically passed on in a murder that has perplexed the nation, and funeral arrangements have already been released. We'll be talking about this later, but I'll allow my panelists to share their condolences to the bereaved and also pay tribute on behalf of the nation. Honorable Semujunganda, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's begin with paying tribute to Colonel Engola.
First of all,
and the lessons.
The first images that came out were of Samuel Engola. I don't know if you realized. Colonel Engola was not so he was in the public, but I think the public did not pay attention to his career. I think there are many people who are who now know him because of what has happened to him. Even at Parliament, he was not very aggressive, very assertive person.
He was an MP for Yamnorth.
Yeah, I think as a minister, he only appeared when he had matters relating to his ministry. But his days was very bad. At the beginning, I was one of those who had been convinced that maybe the bodyguard that shot him had been mistreated. Only to learn that actually this particular bodyguard had been with the minister for just 3 weeks.
Barely a month.
Because the first reports were reports of a bodyguard who had not been paid his allowances. Later on, it emerges that actually he had been with this minister for only 3 weeks. I really want to express my sympathy to his family. This particular death having happened in their own compound of a husband, of a dad who was said bye-bye to go to work, and then he's shot by this particular bodyguard.
What do you make of the contradictions surrounding his murder? The conflicting reports.
The reports I have read myself in the papers are coherent. I don't think they are conflicting. But there are answers, there are questions to answer. If, as I have read in both newspapers, the Honorable Mike Mukola had complained leading to the transfer of this particular soldier back to Bombo, why did then the handlers, why did the deploying officers, instead of disarming him if he had the mental problems, taking him for mental rehabilitation, why did they take him, why did they deploy him to guard another person? The Daily Monitor has consistently reported since the death of Colonel Engola that there was also another UPDF general who had declined this particular, the services of this particular officer. So, on account of that, the people who are responsible for deploying guards to VIPs should either have put this particular individual under investigation, and if, as I said, it is mental, then you take him to Vitavika for either mental rehabilitation or for treatment. The issue of mistreatment that has been dominated the debate in the social media, yes, it exists, but in this particular case, I'm not convinced that in the 3 weeks that was the case. But of course, we have also had ministers and people who have guards who will go in a hotel. There was a time I met one at Hotel Africana. He came with all his guards. They parked outside, and I met him in a restaurant. We had lunch, then he went to join them. There is one, I was told, on his way to northern Uganda, they will park at one of those hotels along the way. He will have lunch and then the journey will continue. especially soldiers. People think soldiers are machines. So when they are serving you, so you have a machine at your disposal that should serve you. For you go to sleep, the man continues serving you. It may not be an issue in this matter, and I'm not saying it is an issue, but this particular days has also ignited that debate of how the VIPs treat people who serve them as guards.
Well,
And it's tragic for the family, but I think because we don't want to blame a victim, we don't know what happened between them. But it's a good debate to have as a country.
Well,
I saw two ministers quoted. I think the Honorable Kaduchu and Honorable Munsi were quoted by newspapers as demanding that a mental check will now need to be done. I had my earlier problems with UPDF. There was a time they had a rehabilitation center at Nakasongola for people who are returning from war. Nakasongola used to be a reception. Actually, they used to call it a reception. You return from Congo to Somalia, from wherever, and then you are at Nakasongola for some time before you are either assigned a unit. I don't know if that is taking place. I've read stories of Americans who were serving in Iraq. Some of them ran mad. Because you see, if you are, yes, they are trained people, but to be in a war zone for months, it has an effect on the mental stability of a person.
Well,
in fact, what America was doing in some of those cases, they had a rehabilitation at the hospital in Germany. So you are taken there for treatment, you are taken there for rehabilitation. But ours, you hear that someone who has been in Somalia fighting Al-Shabaab now is a guard for the IGG.
Well, thank you. We have the IGG in the studio, Honorable Beti Kamya. What a pleasure hosting you tonight.
Thank you.
Let's start off with your tribute to the late Charles Engola, and of course your reaction to the kind of comments that are running online.
Well, like everybody else, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this show. And may I also congratulate you for keeping early sleepers awake until the end of the show, because it's obviously a very popular show. And that goes for all the panelists that come here. Like everybody else, the tragic death of Honorable Colonel Charles Engola was shocking, absolutely shocking. And like Honorable Samuel said, the first news that went out said Sam Engola, minister, not former minister. So the mistake, I mean, they didn't say former minister, but they said Sam Engola, minister. And of course, Sam Engola, I think, is more known than the late Honorable Charles Engola. But I shared cabinet, the last cabinet, with him because he was the Minister of State for Defense, and I was in cabinet as well. And that's the first time I got to know him. And our work didn't really cross very much, but I found him to be a very friendly, really, and easy to get on person who mixed easily and participated effectively in the cabinet. But you know, cabinet and parliament are slightly different.
Right.
In the cabinet, people are very effective. Then in parliament, you only are effective normally when you are talking about your sector. So that's a bit different. But my heart really goes out to the family. From the reviews, he was obviously he may not have been known on the national scene, but on the local scene in Oyam, he was obviously a very popular person, politician. Having been a district chairperson, I did know that twice, I think, as a local politician in Oyam. And I think he had done a lot of work in his constituency. So we want to express our sympathies to the family.
Well,
as the matter of his death, you know, I was listening to the sister of Mabaati, the soldier who shot the minister, speaking on the news tonight. And she said, I mean, they were shocked because he wasn't like a difficult person. But she did say that he was very hard of cash. And he has been calling his sister, asking her to send him some money because he had not been paid. I think he was from Somalia group, and they had not been paid for a couple of months. And but you cannot blame that on the minister, even if he wasn't in Somalia, because when I first heard that he hadn't been paying him, I said, but the minister doesn't pay bodyguards. And as far as we know, bodyguards and other security people are paid by their security unit, and then they get an allowance from the ministry or agency where they are deployed.
Does this chilling murder get you worried as a person who moves around with bodyguards and?
Please don't put ideas in my
No, he's asking.
in bodyguards, in my bodyguards. But yeah, I mean, it is worrying. But I think that we don't even know. I don't know whether the investigation. We don't even know whether he shot at the minister to kill him, or he was shooting widely. You know.
And it was a stray bullet.
Out of frustration, and it became it was a stray bullet. We don't know really whether he aimed at the minister to kill the minister and whether his anger was at the minister. We don't know that, and it's not coming through whether they had an argument, whether he asked him for anything and he didn't give it to him, whether he voiced any frustration. We don't know whether his anger or whatever it is that drove him to shoot was directed at the minister. So I think that the investigators should bring that out. It could be he was frustrated in some way, and maybe could have been shooting in the air, and it ended at the minister. I think there are more questions than answers at this point. But finishing on this point, there are many. This one happens to have been a soldier with a gun. But I see people who are frustrated and they take whatever they're holding, it could be a glass, and they just throw it away. I mean, or hit it against the wall, or just want to, people express themselves. They can just say, you know, that's an expression of anger and violence, even stress. You can say, why are you doing that? But because you're not holding anything, and maybe you're not aiming at someone, so it doesn't show that. But this one happened to be a man holding a gun and expressing anger and frustration. But I think it's too early yet to say whether his frustration was at the minister and whether he intended to murder the minister.
Well, thank you very much. I want to bring in the government spokesperson before I welcome Honorable Winnie Kiza. What does the murder of Kano Engola in cold blood really mean to the security, to the kind of security that VIPs have in the country? And I would also like to hear from you what you think of the comments that are coming in the wake of this murder.
Much of the comments are really conspiracy theories. I don't think they have any relevance to the matter we are discussing. But it's okay for people to conjecture what they think is the issue. From where you sit, we have hundreds of thousands of guns in the hands of security officers. We have never had a single instance of this kind. This is the first one, where a person who is supposed to protect a person, a principal, shoots a principal who got them principles. The person is supposed to guard, to protect. This is the first one. So there shouldn't be an alarm, honestly. Yes, there can be fear, there can be whatever, but it shouldn't be, and we shouldn't promote. Otherwise, nobody will do anything. Because these soldiers who are holding guns, they're like our housemaids. They can put poison in your food, they can. So, surely, it shouldn't be a big issue. But let me give my take. I haven't been privy to the investigation, but from my own take, as part of the system, I'm an investigator, I'm a soldier, I'm a what, I can still tell you that I'm a soldier now.
That's news to me.
Yes. It's not abnormal to have a guard around you. It's not abnormal to have a disagreement. It's not abnormal to have. But this is the first time we have this. My own suspicion is that this guy shot a mother because from the description, he got out of his car after sitting. Most likely, this soldier knew that his boss is a soldier, senior, most likely armed. He could finish him. And in trepidation, he panicked. And even when he went running, the shouting from the media reports, I don't want, not even investigation report, but media reports, he was covering his track. He was so scared that he had killed his own boss. So fierce. It was so fearsome. 3 weeks, you got a man. Yesterday you were with him in Namutumba, and now today you are. I think he shot in panic. This is what I think. Especially shooting the minister. He could have had a disagreement with the ADC because the evidence now is available that he shot the ADC first.
Do you want to buy into the demand for some mental test?
No, I don't want even to buy into that. That's a no-brainer. No-brainer, because we don't have capacity. As a government, as UPDF, we don't have capacity to test the mental capacity of the people we deploy. Now, let me just venture into the vagaries. You see, Kagwa, you and I have been here. If I burst out here, how can you tell why a previously calm of honor over 20 years is bursting? It could be cumulative issues. Mental, social, political, and so on. I want to give the investigators every benefit of doubt, but I don't think, in my view, that this should cause panic. Otherwise, if you cause panic on people who have guns regarding government officials, what will you do for housemaids? You will not eat food at home.
Well,
so, no. Let me just conclude.
I'll give you a minute, yes.
So I think, in my view, let's take it in a stride. Yes, Kanangolo has gone. He's a warrior, a friend of mine. I first met him in 1993, I think, when he was a gunner. Kanangolo is a gunner. He's an artillery gunner, air defense guy. You can see his, do you see his mass? Do you see his size? He was a gunner. He was a commander of a gun artillery. And when he stood there in Minakulo, when he stood there in what we used to call it Zambia, between Karoma and Kamdin, he was our gunner there those days. I've lost a friend, I've lost a commander, but I want to tell public officers, don't fear your guards. majority of those guards are good guards. Majority of those guards are well supervised. In this particular instance, it appears to be that Sabiti was transferred, whether it was a problem soldier or not. There was lack of supervision, immediate supervision.
On the part of the deploying officers?
Deploying officers, but also supervising officers. Because you see, when a soldier is brought to me to guard me, I should ask basic questions. Where has been, well, what is the character, what is this, what is that one, that one. From what is emerging, Colonel Charles Sengola was a relaxed man. I think he took his own person. By the way, this mirrors what General Katumba went through. You see, we take certain things for granted. General Katumba, when he was shot and his daughter was killed, he said, guys, I have harmed nobody. I have no issues with people. Why should you follow me? You stay home. In this instance, they said, Colonel Charles Sengola had all the state secretary with him. But he's the one who said, no, for today, we have just come from Namutumba. I'm going to cabinet. You people, rest. Me or Fono Pondo, somebody here has been with me. You have been with me. 20 years, I think. As a senior government person, I've been in the government since 2020 December. You have never seen me ordinarily with soldiers with me. I take my life easily because when I'm with Semuju, when I'm with you, I think Semuju is going to guard me. I think my character is going to guard me. I think many people take advantage.
Going to guard you.
I think many people take advantage of that. So,
well, I need to get to Honorable Winnie Kiza
yes, in
and
the case
pick
of,
a comment because
yes,
I want us to move to the topic.
In the case of Colonel Chelsea, in this particular case, he said, no, you my people, we came from Namutum. You people stay home. Let me drive to cabinet easily. Let us not close lines of investigations.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. Honorable Winnie Kiza, good to have you with us in the studio.
Not just corporal, I'm a general, by the way. The day I die is when you will see when UPDF now says.
They will know you.
They will now know me.
Why should we?
Why don't you carry your ranks with you?
Corporal don't really want to.
Semuju will know when.
Or you are private of some sort.
When they ask Semuju to salute my casket, then Semuju will know my rank.
Okay. Honorable Winnie.
The best kept secret.
What's your tribute to the deceased and what do you make of the comments that are coming in the wake of his death?
First of all, Kagwanjala, my heart goes out to the people of Oyam district in general and the specific constituency that Kano represented. That Kano represented. So sad that the people who are supposed to defend you are the ones that cause your death. Just like many, I would also ask a lot of questions. Why? Why the guard and why at that time? And also, like Betty has said, I would also want to know why a person who has just been with Kano for 3 weeks decides to met his anger and frustration on him. I'll only say Honorable Charles Sengola has been a victim of failed institutions, because if this man was supposed to be paid and has not been paid, who was supposed to pay him? And therefore the person who was supposed to pay this officer is the one who has caused the death of the Kano. If it is true that it is because of the financial constraints.
So there are quite a number of revelations about the pay of soldiers?
Yes, the halt of pay of soldiers, and on many occasions, even when I was still in Parliament, we were talking about the suffering of the people who are in Somalia,
Many of our soldiers who go for missions suffer to the extent that they were even cutting their allowances. The allowances would not come in time. And all these issues, you know, as someone is on front line, is suffering, has left a family back home, and you don't facilitate them enough to enable them take care of their families. They are human beings. So this frustration builds up into someone and causes them to behave the way they behave. So you will find that soldiers are annoyed all the time. Soldiers are angry. Soldiers are violent. And soldiers tend now to go towards the topic that we shall discuss today, corruption, because of some of these situations and circumstances that they go through. If this Sabiti man, in his frustration, was to go into a situation that would compromise his integrity, he would be in position to take that bribe. But possibly because he was not in position to get that, that is now the boil up of the anger that he had. Well, I don't rule out the fact that he could have had mental challenges, because I know that many Ugandans are struggling with mental illnesses, only that people don't know. But it speaks volumes. You know, whether we address you as a colonel or we address you as a private or corporal, because you have decided not to tell us your rank.
He says he's a general.
No, he said, but and maybe he has no number, but he has said that we shouldn't get worried as a country. We need to get worried. If we get worried, that's when we shall be in position to interrogate the circumstances under which this officer shot dead a minister. And two, you know, there is always a precedence, you know. Don't say, no, it is ending at that, and you continue mistreating people who are holding guns, and you think they will continue holding the guns when they are being heated up there. No. Go to the root of the issues that he talked about.
How keen are you on the promise by the president in his tweet that there is an ongoing investigation and he awaits the conclusion of the investigation before he comments on the security of public officials and the mistakes made and how he will rectify them?
Well, you know, there are so many investigations that have been carried out in this country, and no report has ever been received by Ugandans. We still wait to see the report or the investigation of the killings that have so far happened in this country, including the murder of Abiriga. No report. The burnings of the schools, no report. The deaths of the Kawesas and the Chirumiras, no report.
Simon.
Wait a minute.
You're going to interject.
You are going to interject later. And so when the president says we shouldn't get worried, for us as citizens, we have every reason to worry. Because these are officers carrying guns. The guns are harmful. Yes, even when we use them for defense, when they turn them against us, they do havoc. And so we just want him to go to the root cause. The man has pointed to an issue. There is no reason why we should even beat around the bush. He has said, I've spent months without being paid, and I come from a mission. Do we have issues with other soldiers who are in other missions out of the country? Yes, because they have reported even to Parliament. There is a time we had a full debate in respect of the treatment and the conditions of service of the officers who are on missions abroad.
Honorable, we need to do a wrap on this, but I'll just give you a minute.
We have thousands of
as a government spokesperson.
Yeah, we have thousands of officers on mission.
Disgruntled.
Yeah, guarding people. And at the same time, how come they haven't shot their bosses? So,
you want them to keep shooting?
These are isolated cases.
Boiling points are different.
Madam Winnie, you and I have been, we have been guarding. I don't think we give them the best of service, but the point is, our officers are trained to be resilient, even when in hardship. This one case should not scare the public. Otherwise, nobody would do nothing. I'm guarded, by the way. This is
That they will not shoot you.
an isolated case, specific cases we haven't attended to, we pledge that we should be able to attend to, whether it is mental illness, which is not advised, whether it is drug abuse, whether it is my commander, I deploy public officials should not get worried that the officers you have
Samju looks surprised.
are rogue and they are going to finish you. No. I don't agree with that.
Well, I beg we shift from this and
yes, I am an officer, I am a commander, I am a deploying person, I am a supervisor, I am an intel person. Please, Simon Kagwanjana, we should never send a signal that officers being guarded and officers guarding are reacting on impulse.
I agree.
Please. The majority of these
they are going rogue because of the circumstances.
Majority of these officers are working under the same condition. How come
Only one.
How come only one has done so? This is an isolated case. We are going to handle it in a specific targeted manner.
Well, I must really thank you. We need to wrap up on this. But, Honorable Beti Kamya, much of the spotlight now is on your office as the IGG when it comes to matters corruption. Just recently, there's been a lot of buzz around the Mabaati saga. And for some reason, the world is asking why, up to now, you haven't come up with a report, a conclusive report on what happened.
On Mabaati?
Yes.
Well, first of all, the Mabaati saga was first reported to the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, and when it was reported to them, they started investigations until the investigations came to light. And other people then came on board, but they continued. What we did as the IG, because we didn't all have to crowd on these Mabaati ministers, what we did, we decided to investigate the entire relief program for the past 2 financial years. And the reason we did that is because when you look at, when we go in most cases, people look at the end product of a chain that begins with cracks in the system. But when something happens called corruption, then people begin to look at corruption. But we prefer to investigate the entire chain, which begins with procurement, with the policy itself. How did it begin? The policy statement or document or position, then the execution of that policy, which includes procurement, the procurement process, which leads to delivery, the quality, the quantity, the price. All those things are factors. And of course, when it's received in the stores management itself. And of course, finally, in the case of Mabaati, how the Mabaati finally, people are focusing so much on the Mabaati, but we decided to go from the source.
So as you cast your net wider, aren't you likely to miss out on this subject that is quite heated at the moment?
Yeah, but it's not about the heating that is important, because we're talking about, it's a 39 billion program. Mabaati, by the way, was about 8 billion. The entire supplementary budget was for 39.9 billion, out of which about 8 billion plus was used for Mabaati, 25 billion was for goats, and about 6 billion was for administration. That's the story. That's the story from
6 billion administration.
Yes, 6 billion administration, and we are checking. That's why I'm telling you that when you look at Mabaati, you're actually talking about 8 billion out of 39, and you might miss out the 31 and focus. Oh yes, the Mabaati people, they have been.
So the main player here is State House Anti-Corruption.
On
that
the
is
Mabaati.
Running the show on the Mabaati.
On the Mabaati.
So that in a way demonstrates how parallel you're working.
Not
because
parallel.
ordinarily,
yes,
you would be.
But we shall get there. I mean, if they want to start in the middle, it depends on where you want to start your investigation. For them, they went straight to the Mabaati. For us, I've told you, we went to the 39 billion. And the 39 billion, I've told you, they include goats, they include administration, they even include money that wasn't used, and we want to know at the end of the financial year, where is it? Was it taken back to the consolidated fund and the management of the Mabaati in the store? When you just focus on the Mabaati, you lose the big picture. That's why I said you need the big picture.
Honorable Semuju, does this scandal in a way demonstrate how differently or how parallel the institutions managing or fighting corruption operate in the country?
The focus is the institutions fighting corruption. But I think Mr. Museveni has deprecated government. There was time he had a land office.
There's still one in State
IGG
House.
Beti Kamya is unlucky that
there's
still one in State House.
That the work she's given is the one that other people are also, because he had an office on land, he had a land task force, but he also had a ministry. Confusion. And he does that. He will have all departments of government duplicated under his residence. And unfortunately, because those units that he creates are arbitrary, and the public tends to criticize them heavily, they will want to prove that actually they are very good units and they are doing some work. You remember the health monitoring unit? And I was one of those who were happy when Dr. Diana was appointed permanent secretary. Because when she was in the health monitoring unit, she created an impression that people who were serving in the health sector were the problem. And her arrival at the scene meant that all the problems are going to be resolved. When it comes to the military, Museveni runs another military illegally, an outfit called SFC. If you read Article 210 of the Constitution, it mandates Parliament to create forces by an act. And the Parliament created the Land and Air Forces under the 2005 UPDF Act. I asked Dr. Crispus Jonga, former Minister of Defense, because they had done an organogram of UPDF and presented SFC as a force at the same level with the Air and Land Force. And I asked him, under which legal arrangement did you create it? He said, let me go back, I'll come and brief you. He never came back. So the military, Museveni keeps his own military. There was time when Honorable Sarah Musumba was chairing Committee on Presidential Affairs, they went to meet him in Soroti. He said, this army of yours had failed Konyi until I brought mine. So there is an army for him and an army for everybody. He has a land office and a task force on land in his office, but he also has a ministry for land. You have a statutory organization called the Inspectorate of Government which the Honorable Beti Kamya happens to be heading now, but you also begin creating arbitrary units. Why don't you deploy those very officers who have landed from heaven, and you deploy them in the inspectorate to help Beti Kamya, and you deliver as an institution? One time he told the military, and they were offended, that I didn't know that my soldiers are facing problems until Mohoz told me. He was meeting a high command. Until Mohoz told me, I didn't know my soldiers have problems. So that's how he works, and he prides himself to be a Miyekera, and is very poor at respecting and maintaining institutions of the state. The other day I had issues in the parliament.
But what is most critical? Is it about service delivery, or it's about the statutory nature of these institutions?
It is normal for institutions to begin clashing when they are fighting over the same thing. And I've liked the posture that they have taken as IGG. Because every development in this Mabaati, for me, I'm very happy as a public. You saw the struggle by the anti-corruption unit to report. Now we have found this one, now we have found. So they were like journalists. Because the intention was to create, I mean,
breaking the news.
Yeah, they were behaving like journalists. I've never seen investigators, but Adam, 7 things are possible. You've seen the intelligence officers saying, I am in ISO at a function. I mean, if you are intelligence, how do you introduce yourself? Adam, 7 these things can happen. So you undermine institutions that you have set up. Instead of powering them, you undermine them. People can lay back and leave those small things of Museveni to be the one to do, and they will never do the work. And it's deliberate, because Museveni is an intelligent person. He's extremely intelligent. He does these things deliberately. I think to emasculate the statutory institutions, to make them redundant, to make, you remember when he wanted his brother...
You want to suggest that the Inspectorate of Government is redundant as we speak?
No, I say he wants to make them redundant. You remember when he wanted his brother Salim Sare to access money for NADS? Every speech Museveni was castigating NADS. Do you hear him quarreling with NADS anymore? You go back, you were a journalist. Go back and look at Museveni's speeches about NADS. They are thugs, they are stealing money, I'm going to close you, what? Eventually he said, Salim Sare wealth creation, go and use NADS money. Sometimes he creates avenues for his own people, deliberately, because I've told him Museveni is intelligent. He does these things deliberately. So
are these signals of the collapsing of the inspectorate?
This announcement sometimes is deliberate, because he wants to create an impression that he's fighting corruption. You've forgotten when he brought Nakarima and the anti-corruption, was it anti-corruption unit? I mean anti-corruption week. And then he said, oh, something very big has happened. I have brought Nakarima, she's a soldier, she's very quarrelsome. Forget about corruption. Where did Nakarima and her quarreling lead us? So the groups that work around Museveni seek to impress him that they are doing some work. This particular case of Mabaati, an impression has been created in the media that that State House unity are the ones who unearthed it. They didn't. They were actually drawn into it, and then they wanted to own it, make it look like they are the ones who are fighting corruption. Everybody else is unserious. Now he said he's going to create another one. This time, I have read and listened, which he said
specifically for investors'
officers who are taking bribes that they should be calling there. Then if there are other people who are complaining in agriculture, so you create another one. I mean, you simply can't run a state that way.
Well, we'll take a very short break, and when we return, we'll still be examining the strides in the fight against corruption, well, in the wake of the president's announcement. Yes, I'll come to you first.